Okay, so Angela, you are about to receive your soul reading. And before I actually jump in and share what you are about to experience, I would love for you to just share from your heart
Mm.
what prompted you to arrive at feeling like you needed a soul reading.
I kind of have circled in some areas in my life that I became aware of, with my own personal growth and just recognizing that I'm circling and not moving beyond it completely. It might look a little different, but I hadn't been able to move on, maybe I really know I need to go deeper. I need this soul reading because I haven't been able to just move past the same, thing that I kept circling in. And it was built around finances and some choices with myself. And I was just like, something has to give. I recognize why I've struggled in a certain area. I recognize what happened with my parents that gave me this kind of like hiccup in my life and
Mhm.
why I'm challenged, but why haven't I got past it? So it's like I know it's something deeper and I need to all the work I do with myself to be my best self, why am I still challenged? And so I was like, I need to do the soul reading that we have talked about for a while. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have to say that I'm super, like I said, excited to be able to finally deliver it to you
Mm,
because you're right. We've been talking about my work and the soul
mm,
reading and you know of it, but you never experienced it
right.
before. So it'll be really, I believe, very powerful for you to be on the receiving end of my work instead of actually just hearing about it. Um, for our listeners, I want to make sure a couple of things before we actually get your reading going, which I'm sure you're like, let's go. You're like, let's go. I've been waiting on it.
Definitely ready.
Right. But what I want to explain for anyone about how this soul reading works is most people who find me and find themselves in the need of having a soul reading are at different places in their emotional evolution. And so Angela um, is is more of someone who is intermediate. So when I say intermediate, I mean that Angela is highly aware of a lot of her behaviors, her emotions. She's self-aware. Most people who come to me normally are not highly self-aware. They do have an awareness, but it's not a highly conscious awareness. I have had people who have come to me with similar awareness. I'm highlighting that because I think it's important for anyone who is watching this to understand that it doesn't matter where you are in your emotional evolution, how much work you have done on your own behalf, that at some point it's okay to seek an outside resource, spiritual resource to help you get over the hump, to get to the other side, which is
Mhm.
why Angela is here. So, this soul reading for her is going to give her a greater perspective of things. It's going to confirm things, it's going to validate things for her. You're going to hear this throughout our exchange that as I'm asking her questions about certain things, just for my own clarity, that she is going to then be validated in that is why. And not only that, but she's going to begin to unravel the puzzle that was Angela and begin to connect the dots. So, what I'm going to do is literally just start this soul reading. I'm going to rewind a little bit and again let our listeners know that this soul reading actually began days ago. What do I mean by that? I mean that I literally, once Angela said that she wanted me to do a soul reading for her, I literally went into meditation for her for 3 days. And that's my process. My process is 3 days. And I'm literally sitting quietly for hours, allowing a connection to Holy Spirit, a connection to Angela's ancestors, and a connection to my own. My ancestors come in to support me because the work that I do is very energetically draining, and so they are there to support me, uplift me, and be a source of light and love for me during the 3 days. Angela's ancestors are invited in because they hold the key to where she now finds herself. There is a lot of ancestral trauma, a lot of ancestral information that she needs that she has not been privy to. And because the ancestors are aware of my role in spirit realm, when I invite them in on any descendant's behalf, they come, and they come readily. Now, sometimes it may take a few days, which is why I give it 3 days, because not only am I inviting them in, but I'm also inviting Angela's soul in as well.
Mhm.
So it can be very, very overwhelming for me because I'm literally processing a lot of energies, a lot of souls. And so what I will say is that I have had a little bit of contact with Angela throughout the last few days, more so because I wanted to make sure that I was understanding things that were being given to me. And not only that, I wanted to actually get clarification about the one main guide who stepped forth for her, which she'll be able to tell you maybe a little bit more about her great grandmother. And I'll definitely be able to tell her more about her as well. But I reached out, I texted her, and I said, Angela, who do you know the name of your great grandmother? And your response was,
Oh, it was like, well, there's two great grandmothers, right? Because it's on my, on my dad's side, of course, he had two grandmothers. So I wasn't sure which one, but then, she said the paternal, and I was like, oh, okay, paternal. But I went and went to I have a cousin that does all of our charts and whatnot. And so she had the information. I was able to share that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I was so excited because when I'm actually in meditation and I'm connecting with an ancestor, generally, I haven't met anybody yet, but maybe it'll prove me wrong since I'm saying this. But generally, they don't give me their name, they just give me relationship. So I'm able to say, it's your paternal great grandma. And that's what I led with. So then you were able to go back and seek out your cousin to get her name. So I do that because just think about if you were meeting somebody for the first time and they never said your name. And that's how they are. They want to
Mhm.
be recognized, even though I'm not really sure why they can't provide their name. I don't know. But once I was able to call her Miss Lizzie, then I was able to get confirmation that it in fact was her. My confirmation comes through me as chills. So that gives me a yes. And she's here right now because I just mentioned her name.
Mhm.
So I love that. I love that she has showed up for you over the course of a few days. She's here now in support of you receiving this information. And she is validating that she is a part of this and that she is in agreement with this. That I already know because she wouldn't have showed up otherwise. We'll talk more about why I believe that Miss Lizzie is your main guide, but I want to go ahead and just kind of get started here with a lot of this. Like I said, a lot of this came from her observation of you over you. I'll say over you. over you and her her thoughts about you, who you are, who she believes you are. And then I'll be sharing some lessons that came through overall between Holy Spirit and your other guides. They gave me lessons that they believe you need to be mindful of, that you
Mm,
need to look out for, because it's been some things that have come up, as you stated, that that you have been working on, but maybe possibly haven't been aware of exactly what it is that you need to be mastering. So this will be really good for you to have the actual names of the lessons that you need to be mindful of and you need to master. I'll be able to also share some future things that you can look forward to. And then I'll also give you more information about your great grandma Lizzie, so that you can know who she is and you can understand possibly why she chose you to come back and support as your main guide. So this is how your great grandma sees you. She says that you are highly creative. You're very creative. She called you a creative muse.
a
She said
creative what?
muse, M-U-S-E.
M-E-S-E. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
a creative muse.
Mm,
She said creativity actually is the way you express yourself,
mm-hmm.
because you've been through a lot. And she said that you might not even be aware that that is how you express your feelings, but
Mm-hmm.
your feelings come through creativity. She says that you're very quiet nature, and I know that about you as well. You just have a really quiet spirit, a quiet, you're not a loud person at all. She says that you thrive in peace and in nature. The more that you can actually go out in nature, the better.
Just talking about that
She's-
today.
she says that you are a natural giver, naturally. That's your first, that's your first, you're a giver. You're naturally a giver and you love service oriented things. You love to be able to help other people. You love to volunteer. You love to just dive in and do whatever is needed. And you're not even thinking about payment. You're just like, I see a need, somebody needs my help, I'm there. So you're a natural born giver. She says that you also are always giving back. You're always giving back. You're always encouraging other people. You're a true light. She also mentioned that this is a very serious place in your life. You are literally undergoing a transformation, a spiritual transformation. Before I move on, can you share also, Angela, you had mentioned a couple times, different times, that how you felt in this present time in your life as far as spiritually. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Um, I'm not quite sure specifically what you're talking about, but I know that when you started the work the Thursday before last Saturday, I knew I was on the operating table. I was like, I'm on a spiritual operating table. I was so aware that I was undergoing surgery, a spiritual surgery. And I was just like, I had like 3 weeks, the three weeks prior had been, and there goes the number three, right? Had been like literally like a living hell, like the number of things that were coming at me that were seemed like I was literally being like my whole foundation was being shaken and torn up.
Yes.
And,
Mhm.
it was maddening. It really was.
Yeah.
It was like, what's really going on? because in spirit realm, I felt like this is a great time. And I still feel that this
Yeah.
is a great time. This is getting some amazing things happening, but I did not know the magnitude of how amazing, because that meant that everything had to be shaken up.
Yes.
Everything had to turn upside down. Everything
Yes.
that I saw it had to be turned upside down.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
So,
And
yeah.
so that, we hear all the time about, the saying, releasing, letting go of things that no longer serve you. This would be an example for sure of that. So
Yep.
it's like everything that you once thought was good for you,
Yep.
those things are no longer in place because God came in and said, nope, nope, not that either. Nope. So you're kind of really at a crossroads because you're ready to move on, but you can't move on yet because you need the pieces. You need to know exactly what it is that is going to bring you that resolution. It's going to give you the motivation to move forward and know how to strategize to do that.
And more than anything, with what you're saying, it is the knowing how to, because I'll always make it, I'll always, but this is a time where it has to be strategy involved to
Yes.
where, because I'm going to another level, and to get there, it's going to have to be, there's knowledge that I knew I needed through this.
Yes.
Like everything that you shared is definitely all stuff I know, and is who I am completely
Yes.
so far. You know what I'm saying? But there's some pieces within this that I need
Yes.
to hear, that are going to be like the combination, and
Yeah.
having that combination that you've been needing. I just looked at, I
Yes.
need to charge my thing. That you need to get to move forward. So that's
Yes.
it's extremely important. I'm going to shift a little bit just to
Sure.
cord. I didn't
Sure.
realize I needed to charge. So yeah,
Okay. So I'm gonna continue while you're doing what you
yeah.
need to do.
I'm just
Um,
grabbing the charger. Yeah.
sure, sure. She mentioned that your imagination is very strong.
Mm,
She said you have a very strong, which makes sense to me. If you're highly creative, your imagination would have to be highly creative as well.
yeah.
That is what supports it. That is how it is expressed. It starts in your mind and then it actually comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I think is really, really, uh, really important for you to know that she mentioned about you being creative and about this imagination of yours is that she says because you're so creative and because you you have this very vivid imagination, and if you don't know how vivid your imagination is, she's saying for you to start to express that, start to actually exercise your imagination. She wants you to start thinking creatively through images, creative imagery, um, either creating things or looking at things that are beautiful and then seeing what happens after that. She says that because of this creativity that you have in your imagination, that even you might not know this, but you have the recipe to be an ultimate manifester. Now that makes sense to me as well.
Yeah.
So you can literally sit in meditation and think about the life that you want. Use your imagination to create it, what you want it to look like to down to the details
Mhm.
and actually bring it into your own existence. She says that you are right now in deep reflection. This is reflection mode for you for sure. You're now learning how to use all of the lessons towards your higher self. So you've learned a lot of things. You've been through a lot of experiences traumatically, painfully, and you've had some happiness as well. But great grandma is saying that she's not sure that you've had ample time to actually sit down and reflect on what it is that you experience.
Mm,
throughout your life, what it is you learn from the pain and trauma, what it is you learn from your successes on any level. You've not had a chance to do that. She showed me, like, literally you sitting in the center of just a room full of all of these different things, and you have no clue what is surrounding you because you've not given yourself the opportunity to do it because you are high spirited. We'll get to that in a minute. She mentioned that. You're always on to the next thing before the other thing is finished. You're already
mhm,
you're already on to six other things. She's saying, "We'll get to that. I'm sorry. It's because of her too that I
mm,
feel like I'm like going so fast. It's because she wants me to get to that. But I'm trying to follow what I wrote.
mhm.
But at the same time, she's saying, like, yeah, tell her about that. Tell her about that energy that she is always on because she wants you to slow down. She's saying that energy is good in its place. You have to learn how to slow down. All things are good, but in their time and in their place. You're going to come to a place where you're going to have to be able to pick and choose what you focus your energy on creatively. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves you to rush in and save a project or save somebody who's in the midst of their own project. You're going to come to a place where you're going to have to evaluate, is that something that I want to lend my energy, lend my creative talents to? Because grandma's saying right now, you're literally giving yourself to everybody, and therefore you have nothing to give to yourself. Does that make sense?
Of course. Yep.
Okay. She had to get that out. She wasn't
Mm,
gonna let me move on.
yeah.
Even though I have that, even though I have that later on, she was like, "No, tell her now." Okay. I
Mhm.
told her. So this is gonna be a reflection time. You're gonna arrive. You're gonna get there on your own of really saying, "This is my time. This is my time." To actually sort through the room that you're surrounded with all of these things and all of the lessons that you've mastered, all of the ones that you haven't, all of the ones that are going to continue to come until you do. And like you talked about that strategy, needing that strategy, you're not going to be able to implement a strategy until you see what it is you're working with.
Mhm.
And grandma's saying she needs you to slow down so you can go through the stuff so you can start your piles of what you mastered, what you didn't, what's coming, how you're going to actually respond to the things that are coming, how you're going to conserve your energy moving forward, what projects you're going to focus on, because you can't focus on everything, even though you have been.
Yeah.
But at some point, that is going to burn you out.
Yeah.
It's going to burn you out professionally and personally. So she's trying to get you to conserve your energy, it feels like. She wants you to be more mindful of that, more picky, very picky, not more, very picky of what you focus your energy on. She said there's going to be an integration for you at some point once you go through and see all of the things that you have mastered and all of the things that you're going to be mastering and how you're going to conserve your energy and focus your talents on, that there's going to be an integration process of everything. So you're going to be using everything that you've learned, past and present, surrounding your feelings and your unexpressed emotions. She mentioned to me that there's a lot of unexpressed emotions. So we'll talk about that now. I don't know a lot of the trauma that you have experienced. Um, I know some, but I don't recall a lot. But from what your great grandma shared with me, she's saying that you've done what most people do. You've experienced trauma in your life, but you've never allowed yourself to really deeply acknowledge what it really meant when it happened. So, what has happened because you haven't fully and completely allowed yourself to go there is it's been recorded now. So it's literally in a reservoir. And when I talk to people about the soul and how it literally is a recording of our entire life, even before we got here, it knows who you are. It knows your divine purpose. It knows everything good about you. So when we come here and we experience life as a human, those painful and traumatic events, unless they are immediately processed, they become stored on our soul. So our soul becomes a holding space for the pain and trauma. And so over time, what happens is if you've never really expressed the things that happen to you, then what tends to happen is you become numb to them on some levels and you adapt, which is what everybody does, so that we can continue to get out of bed and do whatever life calls for us to do. Meanwhile, though, your soul is holding on to all of this. And so over time, you've learned to compensate in some areas of your life so that you can continue to hold on to this thing, even though it's not supposed to be there. So that is what you have been feeling. That is why you and I are together now, is because your soul no longer can hold it and no longer wants to hold it. And on some level, you no longer want to hold it either because it's unnatural and you know it's unnatural. And your great grandma has expressed to me that you you've been holding on to a lot. Um, Let me ask you this because with this has a lot to do with everything. So I'm just gonna ask you this question straight out. If I asked you, or if I told you that from everything that I received from your great grandma regarding where you came from, as far as paternally, where you came from, in her own experiences and things of that nature, in your own experiences. If I said to you that, would she convey to me to be your most critical, traumatic um, wound, would be the relationship that you had or didn't have with your father? What would you say to that?
Oh, I would say definitely because he died, when I was 16, and because he had to leave so abruptly with everything that happened, or he felt he needed to leave. Um, that was yeah, it's that abruptness of him. I was closer to my dad, so him leaving and then dying shortly after was highly critical. And I've already acknowledged, in my own life and with others, that if he hadn't have left, my life would be very different today.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
For
my life
sure.
would be very different today. I wouldn't have gotten married at 19. I wouldn't have gone down
Mhm.
the road that I went with a lot of things if
Yeah.
my father was still in my life.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is like the significant piece to your puzzle, is that right there.
Mhm.
And I know that you've heard me speak about a father wound.
Mhm.
That is what you have.
Mhm.
And so everything that you have experienced, even though you've experienced other things not necessarily connected per se to that
Mhm.
experience, but ultimately it boils down to that wound.
Mhm.
Okay. So these are some of the things that your great grandma um, pointed out to me with regards to just you holding on, you carrying things, and and being able to not being able to really see them for what they are. Um, she tells me that you're really, really good at using your intuition, your inner guidance,
Mhm.
mostly for other people. But when it comes to you,
Yep.
he's saying not so much.
Well, that would be facts.
Okay. She's saying that she wants you, and this is going to be, of course, this is going to be an ongoing um, uh, agreement that you're going to have to start making with yourself with regards to your inner guidance, that
Mhm.
intuition being your inner guidance, trusting yourself, trusting your emotions and your feelings, knowing that what you are seeing is true, what your intuition is telling you about a situation or someone is true. Um, have you ever had any issues like with your stomach pains or uneasiness?
Mm.
Not with your intuition, but just in general. Do you feel like your stomach hurts a lot or has hurt in the past?
No, not my stomach.
Okay.
Yeah, not my stomach. I mean,
Okay.
my only issue ever with my stomach was when I had to have the C-section.
Okay.
It was very
Yeah,
different.
but not
And
yeah,
not,
right, but
yeah,
not
not.
okay.
Mm-mm.
So maybe possibly maybe what she is sharing with me about that,
Mhm.
about your stomach is maybe futuristic. Maybe she's telling you, like with your intuition, that that
Mhm.
might be your first sign. Like you might get either a stomach pain, your
Mhm.
stomach might feel uneasy
Mhm.
or nauseous. She's basically saying to like lean into that moving forward. Like if that should happen, that might be a sign that something's off that you need to listen to.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
She also mentioned about like maybe somewhere like possibly growing up, like maybe you kind of closed off your sharing how you felt, like openly expressing, because you really at some point didn't feel like it mattered.
Oh yeah, that definitely happened growing up because people don't want to hear the truth. And so you just let them stay where they're at. They don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So she's saying that's all a part of this what's the word? She's saying suffocation. She's saying like you suffocated your words.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yep. This is
Yeah,
exactly right. It was just like it's not worth it. I've had to do that over and over again because people don't want to deal with truth.
that's
And
right.
so it has created a lot of complications for me,
Yeah,
like with
yeah.
feeling like I can't really be myself. And so that is what has led to kind of what I'm dealing with now and saying, maybe you shouldn't have just cut things off so abruptly to create this spirit of instability when you have so many gifts, so many talents, you know what I mean? And you work hard and all that. But yeah, it's just like maybe I should have found a better way of dealing with it. But I think the fact that when I'm moving in spirit and in love and in truth, and then when people can't handle it, it throws me. So
Mhm.
I just cut it off and
Yeah,
I just move on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that. I
Yeah.
can understand that for sure, especially growing up, experiencing that. You already read the signs that they're not open to it. So it's like
Right.
you kind of stuff it down. Then
Mm,
that becomes the way that you get along with people, you know.
mhm,
And you're right. There are some people who don't want to hear, they're not open. But
mm,
then there are some people who are. So those are the people that you need to surround yourself with, people
mhm.
who, like you said, they're open to the news. They want to
Yeah.
hear from you.
Yeah.
They genuinely, when they ask for your opinion, they really do want it.
Right.
So I would definitely pay more attention to that, to the people that are open to wanting to hear from you versus the people who pretend to be, but they're not.
Mhm,
Again, that's about that energy conservation
mhm.
because everybody doesn't deserve to have a piece of you in that way. So
Yeah.
you'll start to understand those people who do. Those are the people who get all of Angela. Some
Mhm,
people don't deserve to have all of you. So then
mhm.
you limit your conversation about around certain subjects.
Yep.
Yeah. She posed a couple questions here you might want to write now with regards to just being able to uh, acknowledge to yourself, especially around your intuition, your inner guidance, and just seeing people for who they are. She
Mhm.
says to ask yourself periodically, what do you see? Like, what is it that you're really seeing? And this more so felt like around people, not necessarily, and it could apply to a situation, of course, you know. But what do you see? What do you know? Like, what do you really know? Not the thing that you tell yourself to
Right.
give yourself a pass, but what do you really know about this thing? And then trusting your voice, trusting what it is that you have to say. It really matters. And knowing that. Okay. You have any questions for me so far? Because
Mm-mm.
we're about to go deeper.
I'm
You're
ready to
you're
go
good?
deeper.
Okay. You're good.
I'm ready to
Okay.
go deeper.
Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about your father wound,
Okay.
and I'll need your help in unpacking your experience with your dad and how you kind of see it. I know you just shared a little bit about, unfortunately, his death and the impact that had on you. Um, but I'd like for you, if you could kind of just paint the picture for me, like what was life like with your dad prior to his death?
My father was very regimented. He woke up at a certain time, used the bathroom, worked out. He smoked cigars. He smoked cigarettes, so he would have a cigarette on toilet. Like he was very regimented. He would work out, get dressed, get showered, get dressed, and be at work by 8. And he left work by 5. Like he came home, put on his skibbies,
Hmm.
drank some scotch, watched the news, and then cooked dinner. Monday through Friday, that was his
That was it.
routine. And then on the
Hmm.
weekend, sometimes he might have been out of town. He liked to race the horses, and he had certain things that he did. He lived a very balanced, good life. And while he was there for us, and he was a good provider, my mom was an amazing provider as well. They were a great team, business, and he did not let anything get in the way of his routine.
Okay.
That was he was just so I grew up with a very disciplined father, and since we're just talking about my dad, that's how my dad was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. So that definitely uh, paints a good picture, and it gives me greater understanding to some of the things that your great grandma mentioned about
mm-hmm.
her and her son and your dad
Mhm,
of where they come from
mhm.
emotionally, where they came from. Um, what I was gonna say to you is, can you give me more, if there is more, can you give me more depth about your relationship with your dad? I know you described him as far as his routines and stuff, but what did that look like where you were concerned? Like, how did
Ev
he interact with you?
I feel like all of my siblings, it's all 7 of us felt like we were my father's favorite. He had a way of making each of us feel like we were the favorite, even though I had one sister who felt like she was daddy's girl and the
Uh,
favorite. But he had a way of making us all feel that way, the girls anyway.
yeah.
Um, and he was, like I said, he was great uh as far as listening and everything, but he was real clear as to what his responsibilities were and my mother's responsibilities were. And he did his part very well. And it was like if my mother slipped up in something, didn't mean he was necessarily gonna have her back in that way. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, you know, you could talk to him, you can go talk to him about anything. He'd give you that time, but he just to me, what I really think about my father is he had his routine, you respected it, you honored
Right.
his
Yeah.
life the way
Yeah.
it was, but he had
Hmm.
time for you, but he had his routine, and that was, it's like you just respected it. Whatever you need from him, you worked around his routine.
Okay.
Just really interesting. But my mom was the total opposite. You tried to get your time when you could, because my mom was the workaholic, and she was,
Okay.
yeah, she
Yeah.
was, yeah,
Okay. Okay. So
yeah.
if I asked you, um, what did you see relationship wise between your mom and your dad, other than the business aspect,
Mhm.
more so relational, like
Mhm.
husband, wife, romantic, loving, if you saw that, what would be your takeaways from just a fly on the wall looking at your family dynamic with your parents,
It
their
was
relationship?
evident that they loved each other. It wasn't a
Okay.
question of do they love each other or not, but the business side was the most important side. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
And my dad wasn't completely faithful.
Okay.
So that was definitely an issue, and it sometimes came up in the house. As a conversation as we're getting a divorce or whatever. So you would hear that, to
Yeah.
the point where we just all got tired of hearing it.
Yeah.
What I mean, at one time. It just depends on what they were going through. But it was evident that they loved each other and that they did appreciate each other, but that their relationship with my mom was a literal workaholic, but she
Mhm.
kept everything moving and going. What I mean? It was her
Yeah.
on the house all the time that kept everything right, you know?
Yeah.
So she was a workaholic, but it benefited everybody. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I definitely can get that for sure.
But you knew they
So,
loved each other. I mean, it was evident. It just, they
yeah,
didn't have certain things in place that they should have that benefited their relationship the way it should have.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because as I told you, I have grandma here with me,
Mm-hmm. Mm,
and grandma is basically from what she's conveying to me, what I'm feeling is that she's saying that you're being too nice.
yeah, I might be, you gotta.
She's saying that she said that you need to give yourself permission. We're going back to what did you see? What did you know? All of this other stuff. She's saying that you're being too nice about your parents right now. And it's
Mhm.
okay. You don't even
Put all
have to
their
go
business
there.
out there.
Yeah, you don't even have to
No.
go there with me, but she wants you to go there with you.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, quit being nice. She said to call it like it is.
Mm.
Say it what it is, because you're still in the mind frame of acquiescing to the situation, to the
Mm-hmm.
family dynamic, to
Mm-hmm.
what you're to not telling the truth about certain things to appease other people, not to hurt feelings, not to
Right.
rock the boat. That's how you're going to move forward, is being in truth with you.
Right.
You don't have to say it to other people. You don't have to express this to your siblings, your cousin, anybody. This is about Angela and Angela's experience only. The only way you're going to
So
move
do
forward
you
is
feel
that
like,
you.
because I feel like I'm pretty honest, you know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah, I believe you're.
do you feel like maybe it is towards, because my dad was definitely, my favorite.
Yeah,
My mom and dad love them both, but my dad was my favorite. So maybe because of the love that I have for him, that I'm nicer about how he wasn't respectful to my mother and that. Because I mean, I'm real about it.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
have a whole
Sure.
other sibling that I know definitely just by looking at her, and then her brother possibly is too, that I deal with, you know what I mean? That
Mhm.
nobody else in my family does deal with. Nobody else
Okay.
wants to deal with that truth,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not
No, what I honestly
sugarcoating
feel.
his stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't feel like you're sugarcoating it.
Hmm.
But what I believe and what your grandma is
Hmm.
having me to express to you
Hmm.
is, I think because of the love that you have for your father, you're not totally seeing him.
Okay.
You're not totally seeing him. And you're not allowing yourself to express the impact of his routine, the impact of whatever transpired, that you saw between your parents,
Hmm.
and the things that maybe you missed out on because of his routine.
Hmm.
So that's what she's speaking to. She
So,
wants you.
here's something like that. I mean, I think, feel like I said, I feel like I'm pretty honest, but
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah, yeah.
I'm being too nice because it was my dad. But,
Yes.
um, like when he took us one time, literally, to go visit a girlfriend, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Me and I can't remember which other children, but we went all the way out of town, you know what I mean, to visit a girlfriend that he dealt with. And of course, that was nothing but wrong, you know what I mean? It was
Right.
out of order. But that's how bold he was with it, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
at that point in time. And so I don't know how I felt about that. I know it wasn't right.
Yeah.
But with my dad, I don't think I ever expressed my disappointment with him. You know
There
what I'm
you
saying?
go.
I think it never, I became very judgmental over my mom
Yeah.
because she was always working and everything. So I
Yeah.
saw things that I felt like she could have been doing in the home, you know what I mean, that would have made for a better home. I was very judgmental of her, and I'm aware of this,
Yes.
that's why I'm talking about it, and not my dad. And maybe the
Yes.
fact that I've never ever expressed that, like said it to my dad or anything, even now that he's of course been gone for a long time, but I never said it. I lost him at 16 and he was gone at 15, and then, a few months later he was dead. So I didn't get a
Mhm.
chance to ever have those
Yes.
conversations with him. So it was, you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's what's missing. Maybe that conversation is missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it hasn't allowed
Yes.
me to just move past all of that, and maybe that's even
Yes.
in the way of me having healthier relationships,
Yes.
and that's something that needs to happen, so.
Yes, and I love what you said about disappointment, because that's going to be the string. So I want
Mm-hmm.
you to write that down. Disappointment of my father. That is going to be the thread. Once you pull the thread of disappointment,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to actually be attached to a lot of other things that you never admitted to yourself about your dad.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
definitely, please explore that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, give yourself permission and give yourself the honor to do that. And you're right, it touched on your father wound, believe it or not, is associated with so many things that women aren't even aware of if they have one. And so it really has everything to do with you,
Mm-hmm.
your relationship with yourself, your relationship with yourself. Our Father actually shows us how to receive love. So if you just sit in that for a minute, that
Mm-hmm.
he is our blueprint for how we receive love, our thoughts about love, how we actually process it when somebody bestows it upon us. Okay. So if you didn't have an adequate blueprint, then you start to internalize it either consciously or unconsciously. And you start to think that there is something wrong with you.
Is that
No,
for both males and females?
no,
Just
only
for
for a
females.
female with her father.
That's a thing. Okay, I want to make sure.
Yes. So it shows up in how we see ourselves, our relationship with ourselves. These are
Right.
some of the things that it can impact. You might not have all of these, or maybe you do, but it can impact the way that you love yourself. So self-love, self-acceptance, self-esteem, self-respect, self-care, self-worth, self-discipline. It plays into self-sabotage, feelings of shame and guilt, and not feeling good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It also will definitely lend to having poor boundaries
Yeah.
emotionally, and also can lend to romantic partners because on some level you may feel like you're clueless about even how to pick a partner, how to love a partner on some level, even though that might be a desire of yours, because you haven't adequately seen it modeled and because of the role that the father plays to us as
Mm-hmm.
women. We don't really have a foundation to actually build from. So, therefore, you would be the recipient of a lot of serial unsuccessful relationships.
Yeah, I had already said my picker is broke a long time ago.
You're so cute. I call it that
My
too.
picker is broke. Yeah,
Well,
so
we got to get
but you
that
know what?
picture fixed.
I never tied it to my dad, but I'm
Yeah.
this is like oh yeah, it's making a lot of sense.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I always looked at my mom.
Yeah. Well, there's what I have found, Angela, is that we all do that. Usually one parent is the scapegoat, and one
Mm-hmm.
parent is where we give all of our business
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure. So, okay, wonderful.
Very good.
Okay. And we can talk more about what that looks like as far as healing that wound.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just giving you food for thought right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so this came up as well. Grandma did not leave any stones unturned.
Oh,
Okay.
I love grandma.
She didn't leave any stones unturned.
Thank you,
She did
Lizzie.
not. She did not.
I love
Okay.
it.
So take a couple breaths because I want you to be able to tell me. You don't have to go into any detail, but I need to know. Like I know that you experienced a rape before,
Mhm.
and so can you tell me what age that happened? Was that the only time that it happened? And tell
So there's
me.
molestation when I was young, like
Okay,
5, 6,
okay,
7, around that age. And then there's a rape my first year of college. Actually, someone and then he just ended up nutting on me, which was nasty. And then
wow.
at the end of the year, it was a rape. That was the school year, my first year of college.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So,
I definitely understand that for sure. So grandma brings this up. She brings up the sexual trauma. Okay. That's what she called it, sexual trauma.
mm,
And she believes, just like initially when I was telling you about the soul, your soul holding on to all of these emotions from
mm-hmm,
when you were younger and couldn't fully express yourself to your family and things were going on. and you just started to just store it. So you stuffed it down and it became a memory within your body. Same thing happened with your trauma, sexually, and especially if it happened so young, when you were 5, 6, 7. There's no way that you had the capability to even process what was going on for you, even though your body told you it was a violation, even though
Mhm.
your body told you that this was wrong. You still didn't have the ability to process fully and completely what transpired. So
Mhm.
let me ask you this, even though I believe I already know the answer. When this was going on when you were a child, did you tell anyone?
No, what happened was one of my sisters got wind of something, and she caught enough because it was the three of us in a row. My sister was a year younger than me, myself, and my sister a year older than me. The stair steps is what we call it. And so it was someone saw it taking place, and that's how it came out. And it was kind of like it was a female.
Mhm.
So the brother had already been sent back to Detroit because my dad saw that he kept trying to go after my oldest sister, who was 10 years older than me. So he had to go, but the sister was able to stay. And like I always said, it was like that movie Sleeping with the Enemy, like when the enemy's in the home and don't nobody get, because it was a girl, because you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
sure.
she tormented us. You know what I mean? She wasn't able to continue to do the physical stuff once that was found out, but she would try to divide
Mentally.
us. She would give candy to this one to do whatever, because she helped my mom a lot. You know, it was my mom's
Wow.
goddaughter. And
Okay.
so it was one of those situations where it was just I was disgusted. I was like, why is
Yeah.
she still here? Why, you know, but what can I
Yeah.
do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yes. So
that
that's another what you just said, what can I do? That was
mm-hmm,
another example of your stuffing down. My voice doesn't matter. What I
yep,
say doesn't matter.
exactly.
So I
Exactly.
want you to make sure you write that down as well. What I say
Mm-hmm,
doesn't matter.
mm-hmm,
Then, not now,
yeah,
but these are going to be things that you want to catch yourself on moving forward. If
right.
should you run that tape of wanting to express yourself, but intervene and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to say nothing because nobody."
Mm-hmm,
That's something that you want to master and say,
mm-hmm.
"No, that's my old tape. That's not true." People do want to hear what I have to say,
Yeah, but
and
you
I'm
know,
going to.
I get kicked out of jobs because people don't want to hear what I have to say.
I understand. I know, but you're
I
you're
kind
going
of
to be
think I
set.
went the other side with that. Like, I just don't care. I'm gonna say because people don't care anyway. I think I might have went
Yeah,
to the other end with that.
you might have went too far, huh?
Yeah, I might have went too far. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, pull this back. You know, you have to say
Yeah,
everything.
but that's okay because you're going to be putting yourself in position where you're going to have your own thriving business,
Mm-hmm.
and you are going to be able to say what you want to say. And the people who don't want to listen, then you don't need to work with them
Yep.
because they're going to be coming to you for your creativity, your expertise, you
Mm-hmm.
know, your expression, your imagination, all of those things that grandma pointed out to me about you. So you're going to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Pick and choose, not everything, but whatever's on your heart and you feel like it's appropriate in the moment,
Right.
you're going to be able to do that. So before I forget, the reason why she was bringing this up about the sexual trauma is huge. She
Mm-hmm.
wants you uh, to just kind of think about what those events did to you energetically,
Yeah.
because she pointed out two things for consideration. Only you know if it's true or not. She said that you struggle with anxiety. She also said that there is a possibility that you might not even be aware of this, but she believes that you also have ADHD. Not because of these events that have been stored in you for so long. The energy, the
Mm-hmm.
energy. She kept doing this and letting me feel like she kept. I can't see her, but
Mhm.
she wanted me to feel like your energy.
Mhm.
She said that that is why,
Mhm.
because you haven't allowed yourself to go there, like fully and completely. You haven't allowed yourself, like you were saying,
Mhm.
the events that happened when you were way little, the event that happened, the two events that happened in college. You know, you've pretty much just been moving on from one thing to the next,
Mhm.
you know, and your energy has been really, really um, reflective of that. It's been reflective of that. And it could look like you're being extremely productive when grandma is saying that it's an outline of what you've experienced and haven't been able to
Mhm. I don't know
acknowledge.
about ADHD, because I work with this, and so I don't see those signs of that, but I know that to say it could appear that way because of how I'm responding, I would say I could see how someone could say that.
Okay.
So I'm not
Okay.
close to that. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, sure.
and the anxiety, I definitely dealt with that recently, and I didn't never knew that I had it, but I could say that I could see it building, the
Mhm.
anxiety building to the point
Yeah.
where that is something that I do have to deal with now.
Mhm.
And so I'll be on the lookout for ADHD.
And it might be, you know,
It's fine. A lot of people deal with ADHD. It's nearly
oh,
not that
sure,
big
yeah,
a deal.
it's
I'll just
yeah,
say,
and adults are the last to know that they have it because they think that it's just reserved for children.
yeah, I just dealt with a client that realized that he had that. And I was like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes, so, you know, so maybe you don't have
not.
it fully and completely, but maybe you do have some tendencies, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really she is bringing that up for consideration because, like you said, she's actually watching you, have been watching your life. And so, to somebody who's looking at
Mm-hmm.
somebody do so many things all at once, to her, maybe that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. And it does, no, I was saying I could see why that. I think I realize what it is, so I'm like, no, that's not what that is. But yeah, it could look very much that way on the outside. It really could, So it's like when you're
Okay.
not stable the way you could be. I mean, when you've done everything,
Yeah.
degrees and this and that, and you're still dealing with instability and things like that, you have to question yourself, like what's really going
True.
on,
Yeah.
And so I tie it to some other things, but yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just for consideration.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So she started to tell me a little bit about your dad's side of the family,
Hmm.
more so like her, you know, like the whole upbringing, like what that looked like.
Hmm.
Later on, I'll be able to tell you more about her experience as a woman and how she was. Um, but she tells me that your father's family, that side of the family, they were very hard workers.
Hmm.
She says that like they didn't want to spend money, like they saved money.
Hmm.
She also mentioned that they weren't emotional people, so they weren't emotionally connected to each other.
Hmm.
They loved each other, but they didn't express that love. Like they weren't touchy-feely
Right.
people. They didn't say, I love you. That's not how they communicated with each other. In fact, she says they really weren't communicators at all to each other, non communicators, didn't talk much.
Hmm.
She says that she hesitated in telling me this,
Hmm.
um, but I told her it was okay. Like I understood what she was saying. So I'm just
Hmm.
going to read what she said because this is
Okay.
what she said about the family. She says, love just wasn't a priority. She says, we knew we loved each other. We knew we were family. but we didn't say I love you or hug each other. So showing each other love wasn't a priority. She said that your dad, she said Earl Jr.,
Mhm.
my grandson, didn't get much from either parent
Mm.
emotionally. He had to
Mhm.
find his own way on his own. And she did mention your mom. She just said that he married a nice girl.
Mm.
So just based on that little bit about your dad's family, does that does that feel right? Does that feel like he possibly could have been born out of that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, my grandmother was my dad's mom.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother was loving, but she wasn't touchy-feely. She wasn't,
Mhm.
business.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Business,
Yeah,
very business,
yeah, yeah.
I didn't know my grandfather much, but
Okay.
my grandmother I knew better. I knew very
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Well, I'm
Mm.
gonna tell you a little bit more about because you didn't know much about Lizzie, right?
No.
You don't
Yeah,
know
that's
any,
who
so I'm
we
gonna tell
don't
you
have a
about
lot of
her.
information about her.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you about her now, and then we're gonna move into your lessons that you need to be mindful of. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna tell you about her.
Mhm.
She says, and my feeling from her,
Mhm.
um, she actually was gifted. She was gifted, spiritually gifted, but she didn't use her gifts.
Mm.
So she denied them.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's important for you to know because you're definitely using yours.
Mhm.
She came across as very astute. So, like, when you talk about that side of your family being like business oriented,
Mhm.
that's how she came across to me. Like a woman about her business. She was intelligent, very intelligent, ambitious. She came off to me as being someone who was ahead of her time. She was an independent thinker, very independent. She had an independent nature. She was serious though. This was not a woman that you played with. Um, she was not, again, she was not an emotional person. She was serious. She was analytical, self motivated, self directed, self determined. She thought more about like career than anything, is what I was feeling from her. She felt she was on task for something, didn't get what that something was, but
Mhm.
she was on task for something, and that something got interrupted when she was introduced to motherhood.
Mm.
She says that being a mother didn't come naturally to her at all.
Mm.
She said she wasn't a nurturer. So she wasn't naturally a nurturer. She didn't feel, you know, like she knew what she was to do as a mom. She wasn't really hands on. She mentioned that she carried a lot of resentment because um, being a mother wasn't a plan in her plan, I guess, right then. It kind of interrupted things for her. So she carried resentment. She also told me that she made a lot of sacrifices because of that, which I can imagine. She says that people who knew her may have thought that she was cold hearted when really she was just focused on achieving personal goals.
Right.
She said her marriage, which I thought was very interesting because it reminded me of your parents, her
Mhm.
marriage was more of a business partnership than a loving romantic relationship.
Mm.
She said that we saw each other's strengths. We saw the strengths that each other had, and we knew we could do and achieve great things together,
Mhm.
more together than apart. Then I'm gonna actually just go into um, some things that she struggled with that she wants you to consider. as you move forward. She struggled with having courage. She regrets allowing fear. She said fear got in the way of a lot of things for her. She regrets allowing fear to get in the way of her decision making. She wished she could have had more courage. Therefore, she carried a lot of regret. She, this is what I really thought was, I think, the connecting dot for you when you mentioned about you being born um, with a heart defect and you having to get surgery not long after you were here. She actually regrets not having an open heart, meaning not loving people more, not expressing her love to people that she really cared about. So she regrets not sharing her heart and that it was numb and closed off, she said. She also made me believe that her heart had been broken at some
Mhm.
point in her life. So I believe that because she is your main guide, that
Mhm.
she actually put that on you. The fact that your heart, there was something wrong with your heart when
Mhm.
you got here. Even though you had it corrected, it just
Mhm.
feels like she wants you to make sure that you don't close off your heart,
Mhm.
that you lovingly love people, that you express your love, that you don't numb yourself from love. She regrets that she didn't fulfill the things that she cared about deeply um, before her death. So she had a lot of regret that she didn't do things that she had planned for,
Mhm.
and that her death, it felt like, and you can ask your cousin,
Mhm.
maybe she may or may not know, but she gave me the impression that her death was unexpected and untimely. So she feels regret because she didn't get the opportunity to pursue a lot of the things that she wanted to. She tells me that she passed, and this was again the feeling that I got from her explaining about her heart being closed and her heart being broken, that she has possibly passed this karma onto you
Mhm.
so that you would heal it for her. She wants you to, this is her message to you, learn when to end things and when to start new things. She says also with this regret is to not focus on the past. She caught herself focusing, dwelling on the past and other people's behaviors and letting it dictate the direction of her future. So she says for you to not do that, for you to be able to for you to be able to basically let things go, learn from it, and move on. She says that dwelling on the past, dwelling on people's behaviors will dictate the direction of your future. It's taking your power away from yourself when you do that.
Mhm.
So she's telling you not to do that.
Yep.
She said for you to know that you are a creator. And when
Yep.
she said that to me, I got chills because not only was she saying that you are a creator, because you are, you're a creative woman.
Mhm.
That's where you are right now. That's the space you're in creating. But she says, you are a creator. She said, you hold the power to co create with God a bright future. The last thing that she said was about um, pride. She mentioned pride.
Mm-hmm.
And she says she wished she had taken time for more personal reflection to honor and acknowledge who she was and what she had accomplished. So I guess that's why she's saying so much about you and reflecting, you taking that time, that downtime to be able to do that so that you can see the things that are in the room that surround you. She says she wished she had taken more reflection time to honor herself. She wants you to celebrate your efforts in making and creating a better life for yourself and your family. You've come very far. Reflect on what you have mastered. Don't underestimate yourself or your accomplishments. She says that you've been very brave. She wants you to take rightful ownership of who you are and how you share your life. How does that feel for you as far as that part before I get into your lessons?
Um, and I'm gonna take a moment to use the restroom, but I could just say thank you for that because I needed to hear that and I know that. I tend to do things and I might do some incredible things. And for me, it's just like, oh, because it's just me. It's just,
Yeah.
it comes so easy. It's no
Yes.
big deal. But then, like, I had somebody come to me the other day and they were like, did you create that program? Something we were working on with the grant. And I was like, yeah, like, no big deal. And he was like, he's looking at me like, he goes, that's your intellectual property. I said, yeah. He goes, well, I need you to, like, and I was like, I do that with my eyes closed. You know what I'm saying? Because I do. It comes so easy. And it's just like, I don't think anything of it because they're
Sure.
just, to me, God
Yeah.
gives it to me and God,
Yeah.
so you just
Yeah.
do it. I
Right.
don't look at it that way. And so I appreciate her saying that because while I'm not trying to get any kudos or whatever, it is a blessing to be able to get the downloads and get what God
Yes.
gives me to be able to execute it and bring it out.
Yes.
And it is easy. Praise God. But so I'm always giving God the glory. But can I take a
Yes.
potty break?
Yes. I'm
Get
gonna
back.
pause it. Hold on one
Okay.
second.
Yeah. So no, with I'm gonna go back over the notes I have, which basically reflection time and efforts, like focusing
But
on
more
that.
so, but more so, I want you to feel into who she was. I
Yeah.
want you to feel into who your great grandma was so you can kind of see if there are any similarities between you and her, because at the end of the day you're gonna probably walk away with, that's why
Well,
she is my main guide.
here's what I know. Like one of my prayers to God is always, God, don't let me miss you and don't let me leave here without being everything that you have called me to be. That's one of my main prayers.
Wow.
And I feel like that probably is because my grandmother is my spirit guide too. If those were her challenges and she didn't fulfill what she knows she was supposed to fulfill, and the fear that she had with just really moving in the spiritual part of who she is, because that's what moves me greater. So I feel like, you
Yeah.
know, she don't have to worry about any of that because I have that, but it's the balancing it. It's the, because I could
Yes.
very much like my dad was and my
Yeah.
grandmother was business wise. I can be very, and to a
Yes.
point where I felt like I used to be kind of anal and, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be all,
Yeah.
so I really believe that at this time, you know, God had me to lean on you and for her to, speak through you. And she wanted me to hear that, she needed me to get it because I wasn't doing exactly what she said. I wasn't stopping and taking the time to reflect and really look at each piece and see where those pieces go and where they fit. And, I'm just moving
Mhm.
because of the hurt,
Yes, sure.
like the hurt will
Mhm.
keep you moving,
It
and not
will.
really stopping and really. So I knew this was this time, and this is giving me great direction as to how to go about this,
Mhm.
because I just got to a point where I said, I don't want to feel this hurt anymore.
Yeah.
When I know
Yeah.
this is something I can control, but yet every time I do something, it feels like the choices that I make are necessary. It's like
Mhm.
I'm not acting irrationally to me, it feels like I have to because of the hurt and the pain and the things that are happening. And it's just like I can't go on that road anymore. I can't go down that path anymore because it's so evil or it's so this or whatever, right? So somewhere in me, I have to do exactly what she's suggesting, and that is to take the time to make the better choices, to
Mhm.
really listen and look at Angela and what's best for her. Stop
Yes,
always doing for everybody else. Do what's best for Angela, you know? And so
exactly.
it's very important, very, very, very important that I do this. And yeah,
Yeah.
I know that it's this time, so I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I
Great.
appreciate my great grandmother Lizzie. I really do.
That's right. Yeah, she definitely showed up for you for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are a few things. Um, okay, so these are basically your life lessons that you need to be mindful of
Girl,
and
let me
be and
start tonight.
be
Okay.
and
Okay.
be self-aware in attempting to master them as often as they may come up. And I have to say that, of course, they can look differently, but at the end of the day, they're the goal is for you to be self-aware when they pop into your life. So I'm going to name what they are, and then I'm going to break down each of them. Okay.
Mhm.
So the lessons you need to master and be mindful of is judgment, change, happiness, discipline, and service. So the first one, judgment. Judgment teaches the biggest lesson of all, to love and accept others as they are. Having compassion and empathy for differences in others. When you judge others or they judge you, you diminish them and they diminish you. And you let the ego lead. And the ego makes you believe you are better than, or they are better than you. Try to remember this is all an illusion. Everyone is here to teach you something about yourself. So, judgment, I don't know if this is something that you kind of resonate with, where maybe you feel like people are always judging you, or maybe there's an element of you prejudging people, or judging somebody whenever they're saying something or whatever. But this came up as one of your life lessons to master.
It was something that I've noticed a lot of people doing. And when I was young, noticing that that was a way I could go down the road, especially my mom. You know, I noticed her being very judgmental growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. It's a lot of judgment. And that was just something that I always said, I do not want to be that way. And so I've worked a lot with making sure that I'm not being judgmental.
Hmm.
And I will always continue to work with that because I know it's kind of like easy to be that way. It's
Yeah,
easy to
yeah.
fall into that, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah,
not only
so
that, but you wanna be mindful that you're not recreating instances where people are judging you
yeah,
because 'cause you're used to that, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
because we can attract those things that we're used to unknowingly, so you wanna make sure that you're not putting yourself in a judgmental space.
that's good, yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes telling too much of your business too can be like that. I
That
like
could
that
definitely yeah,
because
that
I
could
really looked
definitely
at it for me, you know?
Mhm,
But yeah, you're right.
mhm, okay. Okay, then change is your other one.
Mhm.
You will never evolve and grow if things stay the same. For life to get better, things must change. So this was something that was a consideration is given your history of trauma. Sometimes what happens is we tend to feel like we're out of control. So you want to kind of direct things yourself so that you can kind of direct how things play out because
Yeah,
you really don't necessarily like. the change that's happening unless you create it. And what grandma and your guides were saying, that in order for true transformation to happen, is that you're going to have to surrender on some level and allow change to happen naturally, because the transformation will happen and it's going to nourish your soul so that things can be redirected so that your path will actually find you. So basically, what I was getting out of that was for you to be mindful of if you're creating changes unnecessarily
Mhm.
in your life versus just basically being still and just really just seeing how things play out on their own naturally without you intervening in making any rapid decision about anything, but really just seeing where things go naturally. Because what I hear them saying is that on some levels, things aren't playing out to your highest um, ability, because on some levels you keep
Getting in the
intervening and doing
way.
things.
I keep getting in the way. That's the
Pretty
truth.
much,
That's
pretty
the
much.
truth. I keep getting in the way.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that when people say just like wait, be patient,
Did you say? What'd you
those are
say?
triggers.
Oh, I
Those
know.
feel like triggers because it feels like, what you mean, wait? I'm doing
Yeah.
everything I'm supposed to be doing. What you
Mhm,
mean?
mhm.
But no, I know they're not, but I'm being real with you about it. They feel like
Yeah,
triggers. I have to like process that.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what they're saying to me.
Yeah. Look, they ain't wrong.
Your trigger is feeling out of control. Make sure you write that down.
Yep.
Change triggers feeling out of control.
Hmm. Yeah, they not wrong at all.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is discipline.
Okay.
Your soul has a purpose. You're going to encounter daily distractions that poses obstacles, challenges, and may appear as things that are very pressing and require your attention. But discipline is your birthright. You must be more conscious about the things that will support your purpose. You must learn to reevaluate things, prioritize things, and implement a new system of managing your life, being the co pilot and co creator with God, instead of being passive on some levels and taking on whatever comes your way. So that boils down and feels like to me that they're again telling you to slow down, not to be easily distracted by, what did they say, the shiny things, things that appear to be, you know, possibly good opportunities or,
Mhm.
ways of kind of up leveling yourself, but really just evaluating like, is this really good for me? Is this really something I want to invest my time and creativity to, being able to do that, just really being in that space of how valuable you are and what you really, really bring to any project, being really, really um, selective at this point. Because you can do that, Angela.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a part of everything that comes your way. And when you do that, when you're able to pick and choose what project is going to receive your time and your energy, what you're telling the universe is that I'm picky, I'm
Mhm.
selective, I know my worth, I know my value, and so I don't need to be a part of any more giveaways. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Giving my time away to people who know that you're a giver, as they said, naturally, that you're going to say yes. Those days need to end. You now need to move into the place of what is good for me, what is good for me to be a part of, what is going to make me happy and excited to be able to be a part of this project versus, okay, I'll help this person because they did. No, we're not in that space no more. And even the people who can pay you, you still need to evaluate, do I
Do
want
I
to be a
want to
part
do
of
it?
that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's good, and discipline is going to allow you to do that, to pump your brakes and actually give yourself the benefit of evaluating things and really seeing, is it something that, that really is, is going to, not only give God the glory, but it's going to align with who you are
Mhm.
and what you're moving, what you're working towards for your business. Because everything can align with your business. I mean, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you right now, you're redefining not only you, but you're redefining your brand, your business, the projects you're going to be attracting, what you're going to be saying yes to, what you're going to be behind. So all of those other things have become distractions to you being able to do that evaluation. Like grandma said, sifting through what is it that you do have. So being able to do that. Happiness is another one, which I found interesting. Huh? Grandma asked a really, really deep question. She said, are you allowed to be happy?
It's a great
She
question.
said, yeah. She said, are you allowed to be happy? Then she went on to tell me that the way to fulfill your purpose is to follow your bliss. Follow your bliss. I love that. The things that you set your soul on fire is your happiness. And that is what will guide you. She said, use it as a signpost to your evolution. When you're happy, when you're blissful, when your soul is set on fire.
So, okay, let me let you finish that one and I'll share.
No, go ahead.
I, my first love is writing, and I've always put it off to do the career thing, which was, with education and in social work
Yeah.
and all that. And it was like, look, I got children, I got responsibilities, I got, it's kind of same thing like she said, her kids, etc. But I never, because I grew up with entrepreneurial parents and how successful they were, um, I never put my gift to the side, like, no, I'm not going to do it. I've always kind of done it on some level, right? So now I'm like, it's not going to be a side note. This is it. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing the creating and that what I love doing. But there are things that are mixed in it. And so I'm waiting for everything kind of to come together. Like, I just want one thing to focus on. I just want
Mhm.
one thing to really focus on. And I want to give myself a chance to really, really do that so I can build and develop like I know I can and create. And, that's what I'm looking for to come out of, this
Yeah.
moment right now. Um, because if I don't do me, like grandma was saying, I'm gonna burst
Mhm.
for real.
Yeah.
And I know that. And that's why I
Mhm.
was like, there's just no way that I can no longer not be happy. Like being happy has not been something that I even have worried about because it's just been taking care of kids, doing what I gotta do and all that. And I was like, but I know I want to be happy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I love it because especially a lot of times with Black people, especially Black women, we're so busy nurturing and doing all the stuff, and we never take time for ourselves. So I'm
Mhm.
going to take some time to really to put together what being happy looks like for Angela, and I'm going to make that happen because I do know that I'm able to create the life I want. And so
Yes.
it's really time to move into that. So I appreciate that, you know, yeah,
That
yeah,
opening question was like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You allowed to be happy.
Are you allowed to be happy?
Yes, of course I am. So go for it. It's like, so
There
go
you
for
go.
it. Be
There
happy.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I
she
always looked at
said,
like happy and joy, like, well, happiness is momentarily, joy is, state of being. So I kind of like talk myself out of that through like, well, joy, I want to have joy and
right,
so, but no,
right.
yeah, I
Yes.
am allowed to be happy. Yes, yes, as a
Yes,
matter of
you
fact,
are.
I am.
Yes. And she says that it's going to take, consistent acknowledgement of that and
Yeah.
also a lot of courage. She
Mm-hmm.
says to ask yourself from time to time, am I happy? Is this making me happy?
Right.
Whatever it is that you are doing. Is this someone holding you back from experiencing it? Happiness affects every aspect of your life path. She
Mm-hmm.
says also be aware of others around you lacking happiness, and they need to be brought into their awareness about being happy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was like, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
She says that you can teach others the power of allowing happiness to be a compass.
Mm-hmm. I
I
love
like
it.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. The last lesson is has to do with service. And you remember we kind of started with saying that you're a giver, you like to jump in and kind of lend your talents and skills to serving other people.
Mm-hmm.
But she says that be careful about that because service for you can be a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
She says because you're naturally a giver, your soul naturally resonates and feels most at home doing for others.
Yep.
She says, however, you must be mindful of your boundaries. She says you can overgive to the point of others taking advantage of your big heart. You must practice new parameters of serving and supporting others. How about that?
I love it. She's exactly right.
Okay, we're coming up on the home stretch.
Okay.
Just have a few things I want to share that came through when I was meditating, just
Okay.
about your future, basically. Once you get to a place of being real solid about all of the things that we talked about in your reading,
Mm-hmm.
the future is bright for you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a lot of partnerships and alliances happening, a lot of fruitful opportunities for sure. Um, and I see that happening within 6 months, 6 months to a year. Kind of felt like that time frame for that. So partnerships, alliances, fruitful opportunities. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, Also felt that there was going to be some definitely material and spiritual prosperity, a lot of abundance coming. Again, that was in the window of 6 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right now, you're in student mode. That goes back and forth throughout our life, being a student and being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you are going to move out of student mode and be more of a teacher, using more of your wisdom to help others guide into their purpose. I didn't get a sense of what that would look like, if it was going to be something brief or, something new, but I did feel like you were going to be more of lending your wisdom to other people in some
Mm-hmm.
capacity. Forgiveness came up. Your grandma threw that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness, forgiveness for you, she said first. She said you might not even realize that you're holding on to things, blaming yourself about things that you had no control over.
Mhm.
She said, forgive yourself. Also, forgive other people who did you wrong and let it go.
Yeah.
There was also, believe it or not, that came up was a new relationship. I got a sense of that would be like 1 to 2 years away,
Mhm.
a new relationship. And this person actually being the right one.
All right. Yeah.
And that, my dear, is your soul reading.
Well, thank you, my dear. It's very much appreciated.
You're welcome. How do you feel?
Yes.
I know it's a lot of information, literally 2 hours of
I
information,
know.
like
I
I
was like, what,
told you.
2 hours?
It's literally like your whole life being summarized in 2 hours
Yeah.
based on your great grandma's perception and
Mhm.
knowing and covering and all of that, so it's through her eyes, but 2 hours. And do you feel overwhelmed, or how do you feel?
No, I feel I'm appreciative is probably the word that I would say describes how I feel because uh, I there were some new things, but most of it is things that I know
Mhm,
that I need to prioritize that work with myself so that
mhm,
I make some really good decisions.
mhm,
And the work that I need to do regarding my father isn't really important
mhm.
because he's always been the one that's my dad. That's my daddy. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And I never have really gone down that road with, he was a cheater, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
mom worked her butt off,
Yes.
and she was the reason why they had the prosperity they had because that woman
Mhm.
could sell some real estate. She was amazing.
Right, right.
And it was like, yeah, I never really dealt with that. And I think I need to
Mhm.
deal with that. I think I've been easier on men
Yes.
because of it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
have not maybe been as realistic about, oh, no, I see this sign with you and I don't even want to deal with that.
Yes.
So I think that is profound right now, and that's why, you know, doing this work will allow that right person to come in, you know. So yeah, I'm that was huge for me, that
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
Because that's my daddy. I love my dad. I love my mama too, but
I
I was
know.
really hard on my
No, I
mom.
get what you're saying.
Very hard on my mom. I could see all her flaws, just like
Yeah.
my daughters. They see all my
Mhm.
flaws, what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
so I needed to hear that, like to focus on that in that way. Like I was listening to your, talks about father wound and mother wound, and the father wound didn't hit me like it hit me until you like were saying that. And then, my grandmother was like, hey, now let's be real about this, like which is true, which is
Yeah.
true, none of that was good. And my mom was definitely a wonderful wife, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms
Sure.
of, handling her business. She was amazing.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
she had her ways like everybody, what I mean? I
Sure.
focused on the negative,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
my
yeah.
mother instead
Yeah.
of, looking at the positive. And
Mhm.
even with them not being, like it not working, I was like, well, if my mom wasn't always working so much and
Yeah.
working till 10 o'clock at night and
Right,
she
right.
kept a better home, I judged her. So
Sure.
this is good for me to be like, you know what? While it's okay to recognize people's, strengths and weaknesses, you did
Yeah.
not even do that with your dad. And you knew he was
Yeah.
you knew he was,
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But you
Yeah.
didn't do that. You didn't do that to your dad, but you did it to your mom.
Yes.
You picked
Yeah.
her apart, but you didn't do that with your dad.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
important because that means I'm picking me apart too.
And I heard, I want you to make sure that you write this down, even though you've been taking notes too. What I just heard, a new revelation that you just said about, you said you judged your mom.
I judged her. She was
And
very
that's one of
judgmental.
your
She was
yes, and that's
very
one
judgmental, so she got it back on her, definitely.
see? So it was twofold. So that is
Mhm.
something that, is one of your lessons. So you need to look at that. Remember I told you it's not always gonna look
Right.
like the way,
But
like the lesson it is.
right, because I was not I've been focused on not being judgmental towards other people because I saw that in my mom. I was like, that's really a ugly
Yeah,
behavior.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then I've judged myself. I have not